out how to make it work. Fantastic. So as we're getting ready for people, I see a lot of people logging in now. So as people are logging in now, let me start with some basic stuff for everybody. Session's going to go from sometime between 11. We'll finish. Well, it depends on what time zone you're in. I'm in Mountain Time. I'm in Denver. So it'll go from the top of the hour to the top of the next hour. We'll get Q&A hopefully at the end. I won't be able to probably see the Q&A as I'm doing the presentation, and it might break the flow anyway. So if you can just take some notes of anything you want to ask about, any questions you want to ask about, that'd be great, and we can get to that to the end. We will start hard start no matter what in 2 minutes. So no matter whoever's on or not on, we'll go from there. And in case you're all wondering, almost everyone on the call today is in some way, shape, or form directly involved with producing, managing events. I mean, those are people I run into all the time and work with on a regular basis. But that's not everybody. So I may make some comments today that are not just directly around people who are doing events and planning, but that is the vast majority of the people who should be attending today. And again, we'll give everybody a couple more minutes. Okay, I'm back, and it's 11:04 in Denver, so we're going to start this session off. Let me close off the Q&A so I can see. Once again, if somebody could just go into the Q&A and just say yes if my voice is clear to you. Just yes, and you can hear the sound. Anybody go into Q&A and just type yes? That worries me. I don't see anybody typing yes. Fantastic. Thank you, Tara. I appreciate it. Okay, we're good to go. Okay, well, we all know what it's like on webinars. I have a feeling a lot of people will end up coming into this based on the number of people who've accepted the invitation. We'll probably have people coming into this over the next 5 or 10 minutes. The format today is a webinar format, so it's primarily going to be me talking and delivering some information that I hope is very useful for all of us. And then we'll do Q&A at the end, and of course, I'm available if you want to reach out and ask me any questions afterwards. Of course, that's fine. Today's talk is called Placing Stones, Doing and Having What Matters Most. And hopefully somewhere in the invitation, you got the message that what this is all about is, wait a minute, what about doing and having everything? What about doing and having what matters most? And that is the primary point of this conversation, is to get through. So I have a question for all of you. You don't have to write this down. You don't have to put anything in the box, but put it in your mind or write it down on a piece of paper, the answer to these questions. First of all, just in general, are you ambitious? Are you ambitious in your career, which symbolized by money, but there's many ways to symbolize your career. Are you ambitious in your career, your health and fitness, your relationships in your life, and that's something that gives you personal growth, that makes you a better person than you think you were yesterday? So are you ambitious? And I think the answer probably is going to be generally yes. So how about on a scale of 1 to 5? Are you ambitious? I'm not ambitious. Well, you're probably not on this call if you're not ambitious. But how about 2? I'm a little ambitious in some of the areas. I'm somewhat ambitious in those areas. I'm pretty ambitious in those areas. Or I'm very ambitious in most or all areas of my life. I want to do great in all those 4 areas of my life. So just write that down for yourself, or think about it, what level of ambition you are. And what I've found, just so I'm just going to spend a lot of time on biography stuff here. So again, obviously my name is Chris Hodges. I spent about 10 years on active duty in the U.S. Navy, went to the Naval Academy for college, studied computer science, spent about 10 years as an executive in General Electric, and then have spent more than 15 years in consulting. So that's my background. And my answer to this question at various times in my life would have been ambitious in everything. I want to be great in everything I can do under the sun, right? Which is kind of what got us to where we are today. So the next question, of course, is how are you doing? So think to yourself how you answered in those 4 areas: your career, your relationships, your health and fitness, and your personal growth. How are you doing? Are you struggling in one or more areas? Are you okay? Are you doing much better in some areas? Are you doing pretty well overall? Are you rocking in all 4 areas of your life? If you're rocking in all 4 areas of your life, I'd like you to call me and give me the special potion, whatever you're following. But just answer that to yourself and think, well, which area of your life maybe you're not doing as well as you'd like to do, if that's what you do. And again, you don't have to tell anybody. This is all just about you. So sometimes as we go through life, we can compare ourselves to various people who've done various things at various ages, right? So here's a chart or picture that says, well, what could you do at various ages in your life? 23, 28, 35, 50. Well, here's some examples. Danica Patrick was the first woman ever introduced into the pro circuit of the Indy race car circuit at 23 years old. She was an unbelievably successful go-kart driver and then small kart track driver when she was a kid, just smoked everybody in her hometown and everyone around the region and made it into the Indianapolis 500. Pretty impressive. Steve Jobs founded Apple Computer, 28 years old. The golden guy on the left is Buddha. And the reason I picked Buddha is we kind of know how old he was when he founded Buddhism as a religion, which of course has influenced billions of people throughout the world. He was 35. And then the top 2 people on the right are just kind of a romantic, sentimental favorite for me. That's Paul Newman, very famous early stage Hollywood actor, and Joanna Woodward, his wife. They were married for 50 years before Paul Newman died. So it's not the same as getting to a certain age, but just some interesting comparisons around the different parts of your life and what you can achieve. Now I want to step from those people to a concept. And I want to ask you if you can see the same thing in the 3 things I'm about to show you. So this picture is it's a statue called Apollo and Daphne. It was produced by a sculptor named Bernini, and Bernini was a Renaissance sculptor who lived and worked in Rome. This sculpture exists in Rome today. And it is often seen, along with 1 or 2 of Michelangelo's sculptures, as the single best sculptures ever made in the world. That's how good this sculpture is reputed to be by those who know. And if you can tell, Daphne is turning into a tree. I don't know all the mythology, but Daphne is turning into a tree. Something about how Apollo reaches out to her. And every one of those leaves is an individual piece of stone. So how does that relate to this? A plate of raw fish. What are we talking about? This plate of raw fish, not all of it's raw, there's some eggs there on the side. This plate of sushi was produced by a man named Jiro, and Jiro runs a sushi bar underneath the train station in Tokyo in a place called Ginza, which is like Park Avenue in New York City. Very fancy, posh place. He's been making sushi for about 70 years, and it's reputed to be the best sushi in all of Japan. Okay, sushi, marble statue. How are these 2 related? Well, this one's a little more real for you. Somewhere in the United States, around the world, in the tropics this year, someone will produce an event for a company and a client that is so epic, breathtaking, and memorable that no one can ever forget it. They're going to do what you do, and not all of you only do meeting planning and event planning, but a lot of you do that. They're going to pull off an event that people talk about for years. And all 3 of these things are incredibly closely related. And what they share are these 3 things. They share mastery of the art of what they're doing, passion to do it the way they're going to do it, and they actually pull it off. Now, did you guys all see those balloons? There's some word you say in Zoom. Okay, let me say it again. Success. I don't know. It's some word, and all the balloons pop up. So I'm not sure what that is, but that's what works. Those are the 3 characteristics, at least, that come from those examples that I just showed you. But success is far more than that and far broader than that. And we all see it. We see it in movies, TV, social media, whatever. We see people making lots of money, if that matters. And of course, making lots of money is better than having no money, right? We see people in incredibly great shape and fit. And I don't know about you, but I get a little envious when I see some of that. And then we see people with great relationships. And if you have those great relationships, maybe you don't notice it as much. But if you don't have those great relationships, sometimes you do notice it. And then we find those people who somehow managed to just achieve a level of serenity and peace and personal growth that is awe-inspiring. So those we see everywhere. So let's put some faces to some of that. What are real people who might fall into these categories? Now, you guys may know most of the people on here, but let me name a few that you may not know. Probably everybody knows Beyonce, top left, and everybody knows Kate Middleton in the dress with the white top. You may not know Raina Moskowitz, long brown hair, top row. She is the COO of the company Etsy. You all know Etsy. You can go online and buy things. Incredibly senior executive at the company. Charming, smart as hell, super charming, wonderful to be around. And frankly, I got to interview her for the book that I wrote. That's why I know who she is. Put her picture up there. And then you got Jiro, right? I just talked to you about Jiro. If you haven't seen the movie Jiro Dreams of Sushi, it is well worth watching. You can catch it on Netflix. And it is mastery taken to a level you've never seen, in this case, making sushi. You all know Chris Rock. The blonde woman in the bottom middle is the COO of In-N-Out Burger. You know The Rock, who have I left off? And Jessica Alba, right? Who you may think of her as an actress, but she's also a successful business person. But the question is it because they're smarter than you or me that they're successful? I don't think so. And I think you can look at that picture and if the people you may have heard talk, and you can probably say, hey, I'm as smart as that person, right? So it must not be smart. So if it's not smart, then what is it that makes these people so good at what they do? Well, the answer to that, and this is, I'd love to say this is me, like this all popped out of my head, but like all, I think, great truths, they've all existed for thousands and thousands of years. They were probably written on, papyrus in the pyramids, where they predated Confucius. But they all have this personal formula that they follow. And you say, well, okay, how can I follow a personal formula like that? How can I, Chris Hodges, follow that formula? And what is that formula? So based on many, many observations, one benefit of being as old as I am is I've met a lot of people in a lot of different places. And the greatest people I've ever met, the people who've achieved amazing things in one of those areas of their lives or multiple areas, they do two things. Whoops, my fingers disappear. They do two things. They follow something I call, this is me naming it, the 4 L's, and they place their stones. And that's what we're going to talk about. That's what we're going to cover. So let's talk about success in 4 categories. And we briefly covered some of these before. The first one is that careers are not the most important. But unfortunately, because we spend most of our waking hours during the work week doing our jobs, that's usually the first thing we think of. Maybe we should think of something else first, but that tends to be the one we think of. But these are not in priority order, so don't worry about it. So career winners are everywhere, right? Look around. Now, again, I don't know how many of these people you know. You probably know everybody actually on this list. Vera Wang is the one on the bottom in the black and white picture. And the woman on the far, depending on which side, this woman, no, this one, this woman is the woman who formed the company Spanx, women's undergarments. You guys probably know what that is. She sold the company for more than $1 billion, an incredible achievement. And there are 3,200 billionaires in the world today. Most of these people you probably know. Carlos Slim is the richest man in Mexico. The other two I'm sure you know pretty clearly. Those billionaires fly around on 22,000 private jets. By the way, I don't have a private jet. Do you have a private jet? All right. The standards of a dream home, 1950 may have looked like the top. 2023 maybe looks a little bit more like the bottom. That's one dimension. But another major dimension of success is relationships, right? If you don't have relationships, that's when you really want them, right? What do I mean by relationships? Well, some of the obvious ones, right? Wouldn't it be great to have a bunch of great friends you can hang out with and do things with and like? And of course, loving families, people that, assuming you want a family, you may not, but if you want a loving family, I mean, that's kind of a common thing. And then to be involved in your community, something local, or maybe you want to be involved in the larger community, something even greater. But relationships tend to play an incredibly important part of someone's life. And most of us want to be successful to a greater or lesser degree. The third dimension, again, not in priority order, I would say health and fitness may even come first, because without health and fitness, how can you do anything else? Is health and fitness. Well, the standards of what health and fitness used to look like years ago, very different than what good health and fitness look like today. If you're a mom out there or a dad, there's like this pressure, like I'm a dad, right? By the way, my abdominal muscles don't look like that. If yours do, don't send me a picture, but if yours do, that's pretty impressive if you're a mom and a dad. But the standards have gone higher, not just for mom and dads. That's the first George Bush jumping out of the airplane with some help in his 80s. I mean, that's pretty amazing what a guy could do in his 80s. And the woman running the Ironman in Florida, 63 years old, and she's doing an Ironman. So, hey, if you want to be successful, there's some goals to think about. And then that last dimension, personal success or growth. Now that can be described and done any way you want to do it. But we all kind of have that thing in our mind. I wish I were better at blank. I wish I'd more accomplished at whatever that thing happens to be. Well, according to Abraham Maslow, the great psychologist that all of us studied and probably forgot everything except this pyramid of what he taught us, this pyramid of needs, right? Starting with feeding yourself. But at the top, that's self-actualization. That's that growth thing. That's being that je ne sais quoi, which I think in French means something special. That's that something special thing that gives you growth. And fortunately, in today's world, there was a time when it would be very difficult to grow in some of the ways that we can grow today. But now you go into Google, you could become an expert in any one of these areas. For example, if somebody said, and relevant to this talk, I am the master of my fate and I am the captain of my soul, which I think is very inspiring. But who said it? Well, your phone tells you. It's in Invictus, William Ernest Henley, 1875. Bang, you just achieved personal growth. Or how about you're in a restaurant and someone says, do you want some raw sea cucumber? And you go, no, I'd like to say no in Japanese. You can look that up too. It's called, you say, iie kekko desu, which means no thank you to the raw sea cucumber. You can master your faith. You don't even have to go to church or the temple or wherever you go. You can master your faith online. Or you can master philosophy online. Or you're in a restaurant around the world, you can become fluent in another language sitting on the couch. So the reason I bring all this up is because we don't have the excuses we used to have for not achieving amazing things, right? It's all out there. If you want to be great at any one of these things, you can do it. That's both a good story and a bad story, right? You're like, well, wait a minute. If he says I can do it, and Chris can do it. So how's that working for you? Well, so what's the magic formula to make that happen? What is the magic formula to create that incredible level of success in your life? Well, the magic formula, I call it the magic formula because it's a neat way to put it on a slide, but it is consistent patterns that great people, super well accomplished people, and remember, super well accomplished can just be someone who has fantastic relationships with the 2 or 3 people closest to them in their life. It doesn't have to be some billionaire in a jet. Accomplished is all defined by you. What formula are they following? They do it with 4 L's, 5 fingers. They do it with 4 L's. The first L, and you're not going to be surprised by a lot of this. Oh, well, maybe you will. The first L is love. What do I mean by that? Well, the definition of love depends on who you say it. I look at it as willingness to dedicate time and energy towards something or someone for that matter. If you really love someone, you're going to put time into that. And if you're going to compare yourself, like you say you're good, well, I don't know, how good are you? Well, more than likely, you're going to compare how you do whatever you do to the way other people do it. And people who love what they do are willing to put that time and energy into it. And if you're, quote, competing with them, especially at work, if you're competing with someone on something that they do and they love it and you don't, well, they find it easy. They come and they're just loving it. They're in the zone, right? Which we're going to talk about in just a minute. Those who don't love things have 0 chance of being great. Think about that. If you don't love what you're doing, you have 0 chance of being great. You might be okay, and that's fine. Maybe all you want to be is okay in that particular area. But if you really want to be great, you got to love it. And what does love look like? Well, love takes time. Here's a man repairing a violin, which who knows how long that takes. Or how about these two? If you've ever seen somebody or met someone who has a horse, you think, oh, it'd be nice to ride it for an hour, on Sunday or something. But the amount of time that goes into a horse just to keep that horse functioning is insane. And you don't do it out of obligation. You do it because you love the horse. Or these two guys working on a car, tweaking, spending hours and hours. And while they're doing it, they're not doing something else, right? That's the sacrifice. So while she's working on taking care of the horse, they happen to be doing their car. And of course, there are a million other examples of this. It's a sacrifice. What are they not doing? So, but it's not a sacrifice if you're in that zone of flow and you love what you're doing. So if you all have not seen this before, flow is a concept created. It has existed for many, many, many years, but it was a book by an economist named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Actually, I think he was a psychologist, not an economist. And what Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, long name, said was, all great performers, whether they're golfers, singers, event planners, accountants, management consultants, people who are speakers and consultants like me, if that's what you're doing, then you need it to be a balance of these two things. You need it to be difficult on the skill level, right? So it's getting harder out. I should go this way. It's getting harder on skills, meaning as you go forward, it gets harder and harder. As you go forward, you get better and better. And then going up the side, it gets harder and harder. So harder, better, harder, better, harder, better, harder, better. And right in that center zone, that flow zone, if I get my arm right there, going up that zone is where you're in that zone. It got a little harder, but I'm better. It got a little harder, but I'm better. And that's when you're in the zone. Now, how do you know you're not in the zone? Well, if it's really simple and you're already good at it, like say taking out the trash or something, that's apathy. You don't care, right? Who loves taking out the trash? But that's the zone of apathy. But if it's too difficult up in the red and you're not very good at it, you're going to get anxious. You're going to get aroused in the wrong way, not the have kids way, but you're going to get aroused in a way that makes you, not very productive. You're going to get worried about what's going on. But on the other extreme, if your skills are super high, but it's not particularly challenging, you're just going to get bored, right? Think of all the things in your life that you're already good at, maybe great at, but it's no longer challenging. So you move on, right? So flow, what the example or the concept of flow is all about, and this is how you become great. You're in the zone of flow. Just about the time you think you figured out marriage, call me, let me know. It gets a little harder. Something happens, right? Just about the time you figured out how to pull off an event with 500 people, someone calls you and says, I want you to do one with 1,000. And I want you to do it in Sardinia or whatever, right? So that's the combination of challenge, skill, and flow. And when you're in that zone, that's when you're great. So what do? If you fall out of that box, you either make it more difficult on yourself, if that's the problem, or you get some skills to get better. What does flow look like? I'll go through this really fast, and I'll be happy to send it to you if you'd like it. You're completely involved in what you're doing. It's a sense of ecstasy. It's outside of everyday reality. It's great inner clarity. You know what to do and how to do it. And you knowing that it's doable within your skills, but just within your skills. There's a sense of serenity, no worry about yourself or ego. You're just going. And we all know what this is like. When you get to that crunch period of a great thing that you're doing and you're just in the zone. Like somebody calls you and you don't notice the phone. And then the last thing is it's an intrinsic motivation. The joy is in doing it. When it's all over with, do you say, oh, I'm so happy they paid me for that? Or do you say, I love that. That was fantastic. Whatever it was you're doing. In many of your cases, the event that you're doing. In my case, maybe it's delivering a talk. If it's well received, I'm bouncing off the moon. If you love what you do, what happens? Now, you're not in a room with me, so I can't get you to say anything. But if you were, the answer would be success follows. And that is absolutely true. Even if the success is how you feel. So the second L is learn. So what do great people do? Great in any field. What do? They're constantly, actively learning a little bit about what they're doing. Jiro, the guy who makes the sushi, he's still talking about the way the eggs get blended, that when they make these little wrapped omelets, and he's still talking about how to pick the exact right fish. And the same thing with Bernini with the statue. It's the same thing with you when you do a big event and you go, well, last time we did this, but I think it could be just that much better if we did that, whatever that is, right? So that's that learning point. Well, there's a lot too about learning, because what did I say? I said, well, Google, you can learn anything. So Yeah, it's like overwhelm, right? You're staring at your phone and you go, what am I going to learn? Or you go to Udemy or one of those course, online course things. What do I learn? Well, the answer about people who are incredibly successful is this: they focus. Now, because I put this slide up in the screen like this, let me zoom it in for you. This guy is focused on being the best barbecuer in the village. That's what he wants to do. He's focused on learning how to be the best barbecue guy in the village. And in Texas, I remember looking this up once, there were something like 5,000 barbecue restaurants in the state of Texas last time I looked it up. So if you're in Texas, there's a big job for guys like this. So let me take a pause and think. Learning. What does learning take? It's so simple. So you say, I'll go online, I'll learn something. Yeah, but if it's a skill, you go through stages. And I find these 4 stages can be incredibly helpful to see, how am I doing? How am I, and when am I ready for the next thing? And so again, if you've seen these, I'm sorry, I'm just going to remind you on them. If you haven't seen them, this can be a life changer, the way you think about this. The first stage is called unconscious incompetence. So you see consciousness on the side and competence on the bottom, right? So consciousness meaning you're aware of it, and competence meaning you're good or bad. And it's not that simple, just good or bad, but that's what it is. So unconscious incompetence. And to put that in kind of more casual terminology, that means you suck and you don't even know it. You're bad at this thing and you don't even know you're bad at it. And you could say, well, ignorance is bliss, except if you want to get good at something, right? So what usually happens in the state of unconscious incompetence is somebody or something happens and you are suddenly aware of the fact that you're not good at that thing. Now, I make this joke, but it's true. If you've got a partner in life, you will often find out whether what you're incompetent at. But it's not just a partner. It can be a boss or a colleague, or in the public. You walk into the public and something happens. Now, you can choose, well, you can't choose to remain unconsciously incompetent if someone tells you, or you can choose to ignore it or deny it. But more than likely, you're going to go to the next stage, and that is conscious incompetence. Well, that's kind of misery, because now you know you suck. You're really bad at this thing. And let me downplay that. Now you know you have challenges. You have developmental challenges. You need to. But bottom line is, you know you're not good at this thing. But that's an opportunity if you look at it the right way. You say, well, I'm not good at it. Do I want to be good at it? Well, I do want to be good at it. So what do? You take a class, you get a coach, you do something to move to the next phase. And that takes you to conscious competence. Now, conscious competence that's what every husband in the world who's ever taken ballroom dancing lesson goes through when they finally learn how to get their feet out of their way. you know, 1, 2, 1, 2, whatever. Conscious competence, right, is when you now know you can do it. Let's say it's something you don't like in your job, but you've learned how to do it. You've learned how to do the finances or make the arrangements, or you know how to send email in a way that people actually respond or whatever. But you consciously have to think about it. So it's competence, but it's conscious competence, which means it's taking cycles out of your brain and you're spending time thinking about it. But it's sure better than being incompetent, right? And then the next phase is it becomes a habit, and it becomes unconscious competence. So I'll ask you, does anybody have to think about brushing their teeth in the morning? No, you know that. If someone gives you something, do you have to think about saying please or thank you? No, it just happens, right? You just do that. You get dressed, you do it. But when you were a child, you didn't know those things, right? So there's many, many things that you have become unconsciously competent about. Now the question is, what are the next level things that you need to do in order to go to the level of achievement you and I are both looking for? Because what works is this cycle, this repeating cycle of competence, consciousness, and competence, is it starts to stack up. And your life is a series of these things stacking up on top of each other. And of course, we all get through childhood and we learn how to get dressed and we learn how to do whatever we do. But some of us, for whatever reason, learn a ton. And we keep learning and we keep doing better and better and better. And what's all that about? And where does that come from? Well, if you want to accelerate, you usually need some kind of coach. Go to school, you get a degree, you get training. If you've ever seen a great construction person, anyone who's great, these guys across the street from me yesterday were ripping out a tree stump. They were masters. They were like Jiro making sushi, ripping this stump out of the ground. And they left this tiny little hole in the ground. And it was really neat. Well, guess what? They had a mentor in the construction company that helped them learn how to do that, right? So the shortcut to mastery in the thing you're doing is often a coach. So I'm going to ask you the question, because this next piece is to say, if you're really going to learn something important, you often have to take a risk. You have to do something that exposes you. So I'm going to ask you another question. If everybody can, you don't have to write it in the Q&A. Just think about this. If you had a choice of these four, which of these four is your biggest fear? To bungee jump not over a river, but over solid ground, or ballroom dance on a stage in front of people in public, or how about attend a state dinner in Buckingham Palace, or handle a live snake? So which of those four? Now, because we're in a webinar format, I can't do what I would like to do with you, and I would do, and that's this. I give them that choice, and what a lot of people are terrified about, I actually used to bring this little model snake into the room, but that can be risky because someone thinks it's real. So what I do is I go out and I grab two people from the audience, and you got to be careful. If somebody is terrified, literally terrified, I leave them alone. But if they seem like they're reasonably amenable to this, get two people up on the stage, and I teach them how to do the merengue. Now, I don't know if any of you online know how to do the merengue. The merengue is not what's important. But the merengue, by the way, is left, right, and every Gloria Estefan song you've ever heard practically can be done with the merengue. So I play this music and I teach them how to do the merengue, which thankfully even I can figure that out. But they're terrified. They're in a room full of their colleagues and their peers, and it's usually for whatever reason guys learn we really learn slowly on dance, and they're supposed to lead, right? The guy's got to pick up his hand and lead anyway. So the point is not to get them to dance. The point is to say, if we're going to learn things, the only way we're going to do it is to take chances and to go out there. So then the learning tower, all these things you've learned stack up over time. And what do they become? They become the life tower. And the life tower, like all things, the view is better at the top. The more that you've learned, the more that you've achieved, the better you feel about yourself, right? So it's going through those loops and it's taking those chances. And that is what people who've achieved mastery do. Okay, the third L is, so the first two we had love and learn. That's the first two L's, love and learn. If this entire webinar you only remember two things, it'll be the 4 L's and the concept of placing stones, which we'll get to in just a second. Okay, third L is leverage. Leverage is the power of using other people. Ooh, that sounds bad. Do I mean stepping on the backs of other people, taking credit for other people's work, being a jerk, treating people badly, and you get all? No, that's not what I mean at all. The leverage of other people is how any great thing gets done is with working with a group of people. I mean, one person may have a fantastic idea, but to really execute something great, I think we all know, usually takes a couple of people. So how do you work through other people? This is Michael Schumacher. Michael Schumacher, who had a horrible accident years after this picture was taken. Michael Schumacher was the winningest F1 race driver in all time. He drove for the company Ferrari. I always wondered, was it him or was it the Ferrari? But anyway, Michael Schumacher. He won lots of races, made lots of money, was super famous. And do you think he did it alone? Or do you think all these guys in red uniforms are the ones who made him famous? Clearly, the pit crew and the people on his team are just as much of that victory. Their face may not be on the beer can, but they're just as much a part of that victory. And complex problems today, complex events that you all are involved in and run, complex, when I do consulting assignments with people, you don't do that alone. And it requires very diverse solutions. And I don't mean diversity in some weird politically correct term. The reason diversity became important and the idea became important is because if everyone looks at something the same way, it's really difficult to solve a complex problem. So complex solutions require diverse solutions, or complex problems require diverse solutions. This picture, by the way, the reason I use this picture, you see the guy with his foot on top of his head, somebody standing on top of his head, and it's usually the skinny guy who gets to the very top, right? So you need skinny guys, nimble guys, heavy, and this is men and women. You need everybody to come together to make this thing, and you don't argue about it. You get there and you get to the top. They have to get to the top and take this hat off the top of this sculpture. Anyway, the point is you need different skills to make that happen. So if you think about a metaphor. I always like metaphors that relate to things we all do. If you're trying to do something in your kitchen, in your life, trying to make a great meal for yourself or someone else, and all you have is a knife, you know where this is going, right? All you have a knife, you can do very little. But what if you have this? Well, imagine instead of all those little implements, those are all people that if you're on the right bandwidth with these people and connecting with them, that's the leverage of other people. And these great people I'm telling you about, that's what they do. They find people who can help them. Now, what's really important about the leverage of other people is there are people who want to help you but can't. They don't have the skills. Or people who could help you but won't. Think about that in your life. Someone who knows a lot but won't help you. Or someone who's desperate to help you but just doesn't have it. So you need to find somebody who does both, who wants to help you and can help you. That's what makes it work. And it's great to have somebody just give you a big hug, if that's what it gets to, but that's what you need. Okay, final of the 4 L's, we have love, learn, leverage. Those are the first 3, right? The last one is luck. Now, if I were you, I would say, great, Chris talks about these things I can do, these things I can manage or have some, agency on and doing. And now you're going to say it becomes lucky I get the right lottery ticket. That's not, of course, what I'm talking about. Chance is random, and that's truly luck, right? Where you're literally going to Las Vegas and put money down on a table and you walk away with a lot of money. By the way, do you think they built a city that looks like this giving people a lot of money or not? I think a lot. So that's not the kind of luck I'm talking about. We're talking about the kind of luck that can be arranged. In this example, having a map to where you're going can be incredibly helpful. It's self-made. And if the simplest way I can say that, I'm going to give you an example in a minute, but self-made luck, if you're trying to be great at something, find those who are, right? Go get in the way of success. Stand in the way of that thing being great, and you will learn. I don't mean get run over. Just stand in the way of what is great, right? And you will learn. Also, put yourself in the place where you need to be. I had a relative many years ago who wanted to be married. She was very eager to be married. And she would say to me, I just can't find anyone to marry. And this is a sensitive subject, right? And I said, well, how are you going about meeting them? And she said, well, effectively, she said, I wait for the phone to ring. Not a successful strategy generally. So over a long period of time, I said, hey, you like golf and you like sailing. Why don't you learn? This is true for men or women, by the way, or anybody for that matter. You're looking for a partner. Go do something that you like to do, like golf or sailing or scuba diving or dance classes or whatever. And guess what? If you don't meet someone great there, the very minimum, you're going to learn how to golf or scuba dive or dance or whatever. So my point is not romance. I'm not a dating coach or anything, is to put yourself in the path of what is successful and where you want to go. So this picture, I think, metaphorically says a lot. How many of us go fishing, and this is not about relationships, although you could apply it for that. How many of us go fishing and put our hook in the wrong place and then don't do anything different and say, boy, what a bummer. Today is not working out really well, right? So if you're in a company that you're not getting promoted, you're not getting the kind of visibility that you need, go to another one, right? If you're having a relationship that's not working, go another direction. If you're working out in a way and you're not growing, getting whatever fitness goals you want to do something else, right? That's should be very obvious, but unfortunately, a lot of us don't let the obvious kick in. So that's what we're talking about, making your own luck. Oh, before I say that, I wish I could see your hands. If we were in a big room, I'd ask you to put your hands up. You're driving up to, we have a Safeway near our house. So I'm driving up to Safeway to go shopping at the grocery store or Costco. There's a Costco that we go to all the time as well. And I'll give you a choice. Do you start at the 5th or 6th row because you figure there's going to be an empty spot back there? Or do you go to the very front row? And what's the thinking behind that when you do it? Do you think you're going to get a spot in the front row or not, right? I go to the front row every single time. And here's a hint. When you go to the front row every single time and there's not a spot, chill for 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5. And my wife just laughs. She's like, I can't believe we're doing this. I'd say 80% of the time I get a spot in the front row. just waiting a couple of minutes, right? Because the front row is pretty busy, people pull in and out. Anyway, make your own luck. So that secret formula that all these people who are so good at doing things follow. Again, this is one of the two things I want you to take away from today. Love, learn, leverage, and why the balloons came up, I have no idea. Love, learn, leverage, and luck. Is somebody sending balloons? Is somebody putting off? I don't know if that's happening from the Q&A or what's going on. Thank you if you're sending balloons. I don't know how that works. So love, learn, leverage, and luck. That's the 4 L's. So now the question I have for you is, you got this formula. I just told you what it is. Before I show you that, you should be able to achieve everything you want to achieve in your life, right? Go. Drop off this webinar, go rock and make all that stuff happen. Yeah, there's a reason this webinar doesn't end at 42 after the hour. Because in the words of the emperor, yet still uncertainty inside you there is. Maybe that's Yoda talking, right? Inside you there is. He just gave me this formula, but it still doesn't seem right. Yeah, it resonates with stuff. Yeah, but there's something missing. Regret? Are you regretting the way you've made certain decisions or what you're doing? Are you envious of the things other people have achieved when you think you could be able to achieve them or you want to achieve them? Are you frustrated because you can't go to that next level? Are you a human being and have to say yes to at least one of these 3 things? Like I would say yes, of course, to all 3 of these things. And then that final question is it something else? Is there something else that we need to do other than the 4 L's, which of course I'm going to tell you is the placing stones piece. But I want to briefly tell you a story. Why I wrote this book. I wrote this book almost 20 years ago. And why I gave this talk all around the world. I was in a big company and I gave this talk all around the world because working, ambitious professionals all want to be great at stuff, right? They were just like me. I was just like them. I was sitting in a movie. My son in between me, my wife on the other side. I'm happy with my marriage. My son's doing fine. At the time I'm making enough money to be fine. I'm not like broke or anything. Pretty good shape. Movie plays, and it's a fantastic movie. It's a family movie. It wins an Academy Award. I didn't know that at the time, but it wins an Academy Award. And when the credits roll, the producer of the film is my cousin. Now, I knew that my cousin had produced this film. I don't know about you, and I'll say this publicly. The envy was so thick in me, I could cut it with a knife. I was like, oh, can you imagine being a producer? And I'm not going to say the name of the film because you could directly connect it to who he is, because about what I'm about to say. I mean, one of the best jobs in the world to be a movie producer of a film like this. And then it goes on and wins an Academy Award. And he goes to the Oscars and the Golden Globes, right? And of course, he made a boatload of money making this movie. But what I also knew was that he was wildly out of shape and overweight, had no long-term relationships in his life whatsoever, had his driver's license suspended by the state where he was working because he didn't have time to pay his tickets. Right. Wait a minute. And I'm still envious about this? There's something wrong with that, right? Which was the impetus of this whole thing, is how I came to write this book, Placing Stones, was to go out and reach out to as many people as I could about this subject and say, what is going on here? Well, that's the answer, right? That's how everything comes from great pain? Well, that's the answer. So let's go back to your success. That's what we're here to talk about. You can get there slowly or you can get there fast. And the question is, how do you do it? And the answer, I think, is through this magic little stone. And how do you go about making this magic stone, like the Sorcerer's Stone from Harry Potter? Well, you make it by applying loving what you do, learning a little bit every day, the leverage of the power of other people, and making your own luck. And then what you get is this stone of potential success that you can apply to your life. Or you can not do that, and you just end up with sand. That's called your life. And it slips through your fingers and you got nothing left. So make a stone or let it become sand. And time and energy become the stones of human currency. Time and energy. So what do I mean by that? Well, this is time. I'm spending time with the kids, right? No, you're not. You're doing your email and your kids are desperate for your attention. In this case, I'm having a great walk with the baby, right? No, you're not. You're trying to do 14 things at one time. And I feel like I'm looking at any street in Brooklyn, right? Which everyone's doing this all the time. So the success that you're looking for, and I'm looking for, requires placing your stones in these 4 areas. Well, how do you place them?
That should be the natural question. Am I going to tell you how to place your stones? No, I'm not going to tell you that. But I'm going to tell you that you have to place them. So do you place them like this? Prioritize mostly in career? Or how about balance them out around your life? Be a balanced person. Or maybe you should be single-minded and you should put everything in one category. Well, I don't know what works for you, right? But what you can't do, now that you've heard this, now that you made it this far in this webinar, what you absolutely can't do is deny the fact that it's up to you to make those stones if you want and to place them. So complaining doesn't do any good. Avoiding, that's the sand. You just run out of time and you won't get to where you want to achieve. So the answer is you and I have to decide at any given time how to place our stones. We can invest them, and you know what comes from investing the stones, or in one of my favorite pictures of this whole presentation, you can squander them and sit on the couch and say, life isn't working out for me. Yeah, I wonder why that is. By the way, has anyone ever seen duct tape on a couch? I'm not sure I've ever seen duct tape on a couch. Now, here I got some good and bad news. Lots of influence out there. Most of this would be really social media. It's hard to pick a social media, one slide of a social media, but think of all the influences out there telling you what you should do. You should be this, you should be that. Everyone who's great does this, everyone who's great does that. We are all inundated with that all day long. Some of it's good, some of it's hopeless, but this is all public stuff. How about those people in your life who want you to do certain things? They're putting pressure on you too. Should, the classic thing about the dentists are the most unhappy people in all the professions because their parents wanted them to be dentists. Not all true, but they have the highest suicide rate in the world because their parents told them they should be dentists. I mean, think of all the influences we get from other people. So we've all heard this term personal best. This is the most liberating combination, in my opinion, for me, hopefully for you. Your personal best is you deciding where do you want to be great or where do you want to not be great? What is personal best to you? Because your personal best and my personal best are not the same and never could be the same. We're different people. We grew up in different places, in different worlds. You think of me right now, I'm not wearing polka dot pajamas, but I could be, right? You don't know what's behind the curtain of all these other people, what's going on. So comparing people is usually worthless. And what I mean by that is not saying, hey, this guy in this picture got a nice yellow tie, but he's really doing well in his career. That's fine, because he is doing well in his career, right? So nothing wrong with that. But you don't know what's going on in the rest of this guy's life. And yet, what do? Just like my Academy Award-winning relative, right? I knew the backstory, and it still bothered me. Imagine not knowing the backstory, and think how much effort people make to fake who they are. How about this woman? She making a good decision? Well, she put it all in her relationship. I don't know. Is that a good decision? She spent so much time with her kid that she hasn't walked in 6 months, and now she's, got horrible health problems. I don't know. I'm making that up. The point is, looking at what someone's doing is not the answer. It's making the decision yourself. How about this? You might say, be balanced. Put them all in different places. That could be great for you, or it could not be great. You might want to win that Ironman at 63 years old. That's just a visual reminder of where to put them. We all have, these are the core messages here. We all have the same potential to make these stones. You get up in the morning, 6 or 7 or 8 hours of sleep, whatever it is, you could pretty much make the same amount of stones as everybody. The question is, where are you placing them? Because we now know where you place them is what you're going to get. What gets measured gets done. I've got a couple of worksheets. I'll be happy to send them to you if you'd like these worksheets, or you can do whatever you want to do on your own. Oh, by the way, anyone who would like either electronic version, I am not selling anything. So anyone who would like an electronic version of my book, I will be happy to send you an electronic version of the book, Placing Stones. I spend most of my time actually talking about implementing AI and intelligent automation in companies. That was my second book. But the first book is Placing Stones, and it has these templates in it, and I'll be happy to send them to you. So if you want them, let me know. I'll send you even Placing Stones. There's enough people in here, I can just send you copies of Placing Stones. Just send me an email to the chris@nobleautomationnow.com. Okay, so they're your stones to place, very important. But before you sit on the couch and think about it a long time, tide, and life wait for no one. If you don't start placing those stones now, today, right, in some way, shape, or form, that's what happens. They just get wiped away and you don't get those opportunities. So 1, 5, and 10 years from now, my opinion is you will be no different other than older. So will I. No different 1, 5, 10 years from now, except for the people you meet and put in your life, the books you read, not necessarily mine, but the books you read, and the stones you place. That will determine everything. So my final point, and we're going to just barely make it here in time, is to say, for your benefit, everyone in your lives benefit, and my benefit, because I'm on the same planet with you. And I may be at a conference with you. I may run into you at an event, right? Place them wisely, because every moment you're feeling envious about what somebody else is doing, all of that just eats away at your potential to achieve and do what you want to be the you that you can be, right? So place them wisely, and we all do that separately. Okay, I think my last slide is a thank you slide. So that's it. That's the end of the presentation. But and this is, again, those are the 2 books. I will send them to you if you'd like them. The books, I will send them to you electronically. If I send it to you electronically, please don't send it to everyone you know. That would not be cool. Or you can send me an email and I'll be happy to contact you that way. But I'd like to now go to Q&A. Now, I have to admit, there's usually not a lot of Q&A on this topic, but sometimes there's something somebody really wants to get into. So I'm going to click on the Q&A and see if anybody has anything to say. If anybody has any questions. And actually, if you can, on a scale of like 1 to 5, now the problem is I could see your name, so this might make it awkward to you. On a scale of 1 to 5. So actually, this is called FIST or 5. So FIST is a 0. 5 is, 5 is fantastic. Was this useful to you? Does this apply to your life? Does any of this resonate? So if it resonates a lot, give me a 5. Not necessarily that I did a great job presenting it or not, but if it resonates to you, please give me, say, lean toward the 5. And if you're like, my God, I've been doing my email the whole time, what's he talking about? I didn't even hear a word he said. That could be a 0. And you can do that in the Q&A because that's the only thing I can see. And then we are going to wind down. And like any good public speaker, I am going to finish ahead of schedule and give you, the planner, time back on your calendar. Anybody have anything else I need to hit? Oh, I wasn't scrolling down. I didn't see these comments. Geez, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you very much, you guys. I really appreciate this. This is just fantastic to hear this. All right. You know how to reach me. I hope to see you. And by the way, I noticed on this list, several of the people on this list I've actually done presentations for, and I want to thank you for me supporting me and for me supporting you throughout the year of 2023. And I hope the rest of you, I hope to see you out there on the road with that amazing event and all the flashy stuff by the pool, or maybe it's a small event with a venue of 10, whatever it happens to be. I hope to see you then. Have a fantastic holiday. I hope this gives you something to think about toward the end of the year. And I sincerely appreciate you joining this event today. So thank you very much. And I don't see any questions, so I'm going to wrap it up. And I gave you 5 minutes back of your calendar. All right. Take care and place them wisely.